your boy here, Manny Fresh. We got our co-host, Sean Fabrizi. And if you are out there and you know that this podcast is all based off of business, entrepreneurship, and life stories, we want you to be the special one out there that tells all your family, all your friends, go fuck yourself because I'm going to be somebody, and never show up to any Christmas dinners or anything. To be the best, you got to try to be the best by fucking making your time the best it ever will be. And on today, dun dun dun, we got the fucking legend of Tampa Bay, the main event, the motherfucking raindropper, Steve Fantetti, attorney, baby.
What's up, boys?
Cheers to the Johnny Walker
Cheers,
Blue.
fellas. Cheers to my guy.
Cheers.
Let's go. Let's drink that JD, baby.
Yeah, we've had Steve on the podcast before. He's one of the most like popular, in demand.
He was episode 3.
Episode 3, and everybody loved it. We had a lot of traction on there. A lot of people like to know about business law, and he actually dropped a dime on this thing. So we brought him back to get some more information for all you out there in the audience that are wondering, how the fuck can I make my employee contracts? How can I make my operating agreement better? What can I do with my personal assets to be able to hide those from being exposed? So today, Steve is going to continue his rage on the Tampa Bay area.
Oh my God, dog.
That's
If
quite
that
the
is,
intro.
yeah, that's a little much, man. Hey, Manny, have you been drinking today?
Absolutely not. I'm a Christian guy. I believe in everything besides Allah.
Do you not?
Johnny
or-
Walker Blue, though.
Johnny Walker Blue!
The great way to do a pod. The
Do
only way.
you or
no
do
free
you
shout outs,
not?
though.
Right now, look.
Yeah, free shout.
That's a free shout out right
Yeah,
there.
that's fine. That's fine.
Steve has brought over Johnny Walker Blue, the big bottle.
Let's see the bottle.
And anytime they want to send us some for free, we're willing to accept.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
absolutely.
And if
Absolutely.
you guys like Johnny Walker
We're
Blue,
clients.
yeah, we're
We're darn
clients.
sure.
I mean, this is a beautiful bottle, man. Great
Yeah.
casing, everything. I mean,
Everything.
this is the way to drink. I
It's
mean,
love.
It's like drinking water.
Well, I
like
wouldn't
Fiji
say
water.
that.
Yeah, well, it's water that's really smooth. That's
There you
all I
go.
can say. My favorite drink.
Hey,
in the
actually,
whole
we
world.
could probably put it up here.
Yeah, right here,
Yeah. Let's,
Sponsorship.
yeah. Why not?
right there.
Right. Fuck it. Let's a little bit more to right where your stand is. Put it where your stand's at.
That's
there?
perfect.
Boom, bro.
You can still get that face in
Yeah.
there.
Johnny Walker, definitely hit us up, man. We will sponsor this shit all day.
Yeah, you got a good thing. So,
Clean.
Steve, we were talking about a lot of different,
Contract
Yeah,
law,
contract-
We just had
business
lunch. It
law.
got deep.
Yeah,
We
we
did.
got.
We just got back
I
from
mean,
lunch,
I
baby.
mean, we were talking about your JFK book.
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming.
But I'll tell you something. That shit is going to be a Netflix series
It
because
was.
I was fucking busting a
can't
nut.
wait.
in this thing.
Oh,
Sean was too, maybe.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that. I
it was
appreciate
good.
that.
The
It was good.
intriguing story.
It's coming.
Historical fiction.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
but we will get Steve on here for a different time to kind of lay it out for us because you guys will be in tune. We don't want to waste this podcast on that because
No
it's,
spoilers.
Yeah, there's no spoilers on that because that was fucking. I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna be hooked like fucking Hugh Hefner on the Playboy Bunny Mansion. You know? Well, anyways,
But let's go to Steve, right? So Steve, all
Yes.
right. I mean, so you have all these things going on. You have a lot of cool,
Projects.
trying to be an author, things of that.
trying to
nature.
be an author.
Well, he's not an author yet, right?
It's got to be published.
Yeah, it's got to be
Published
published.
author.
Okay,
then-
$400 published. I'm a publisher.
And then when it comes to, say, business and contract law,
Yeah.
what are some things that the average viewer may not know about? Let's say that you fire 4 people unknowingly, and those 4 people are part of a certain ethnic group or gender group. That business owner can be sued because of discrimination law. Is that correct?
Yeah. So here's
We
what
were
I would
talking
say.
about this at Corona, right?
Yeah, we were. We were having the Don Dada cigar. But all seriousness, great questions. But before I can answer, I want to make sure we're on the same page because you started talking about business and contracts. Then you shifted the quickest pivot I've ever seen to
employees.
To employment and labor law.
I saw that.
But what I like is that we have two topics to talk about.
Yeah.
So which one do you want to talk about first? You want to do into business and contracts and then get into
do
employment?
Let's do the employment first.
Okay. This guy's hype about the employment.
Yeah.
So this is great because it's a great error that a lot of, especially small businesses, make. What's important to understand is you got to understand how many employees you have because there's different laws you'll fall under depending upon the number of employees you have. And it's important to know that in most small business, sometimes they just don't pay attention to it. They're too worried about, their product or service working, or, they're really just passionate about developing whatever it is that their main
is there
product
a certain number
or service is about their business. Like we'll get into that. Absolutely. And so they lose sight of all these other collateral things that can happen when you're running a business, as you guys know. And one of those items is the labor laws. And it could be a Fair Labor Standards Act thing. Make sure you're paying the proper, overtime and wages. If you have independent contractors, that they're not employees, so they're not subject to the same laws as employees are, how you classify them. So classification is obviously a big issue. But what you're getting more towards is like discrimination and how it can happen sometimes wrongfully if there's a termination event or separation event of the employee from the company. And so to get more directed about what you just asked is that, there is situations where if your company has, more than 12 employees, well, then now you start qualifying for things like, Family Medical Leave Act, where if you have people who have a family member who's become sick and you have to now give them time off of work, it's not paid, but you can't terminate them because they're taking that, or if they're sick or whatever it could be to care for a loved one. So a lot of times companies might say, well, look, Jeff is going on leave to take care of his dad, and he's one of our most important employees because of the job he has. We have to find someone to fill his role while he's gone. Well, let's say they do that, and they realize the new person they got's really good, and they say, okay, we don't need Jeff no more. We're going to just terminate him. Well, that's a retaliation claim. You can't retaliate against someone because they took FMLA leave, right? And so the statute says, for instance, to just break it down, is that you have to you can't terminate them because they took leave. You have to offer them, reasonable, adequate, alternative option position in the company that's closer, reasonably related to what they did at the same or similar rate of pay. And they have an option to accept that when they come back. We don't have to give them the exact same job, but companies have some flexibility that way. But a lot of companies, sometimes they just ignore that. And there's times where they'll just let the person go and they don't care because they just want to keep things moving, but they don't check the law or what the compliance regulations are in that. So that's a different way as one example. There's several other examples you could have where, they want to, the biggest problem I see is where they don't have any back office or, consistent policies drafted. So they might, let's say someone gets in trouble.
You mean like employee handbook?
Exactly.
Type?
HR, human resource policy manuals or handbook rules. A lot of times what'll happen is the companies will just start making ad hoc decisions. So for instance, if they want to discipline somebody, right? Let's say that there's a male employee who, starts fraternizing with people during work hours, and they don't have any rules or anywhere about how much time they can spend during work hours or on breaks. And they say, look, we're gonna give you a warning, don't do this again, or we're gonna fire you. But yet that employee had no guidance on what the rules were for breaks or fraternizing with employees. And let's say a woman does it, and they see the woman doing it, same kind of thing, same amount of time, and they say, you're fired. Well, you can't have arbitrary rules for employees. They all have to be governed by the same rules. That's why I tell companies I represent, you have to have a human resources policy manual and consistent policies for progressive discipline policies. If you want to write people up, write them up. First warning, second warning, third warning is termination, or third violation is termination, right? And always follow that every single time. I can't tell you how many companies.
What do you mean by fraternizing?
Well, it could be like going out to have
hey, how are
drinks
you
on
doing?
lunch hour, or they see them, slapping backs or touching. That people could think it's someone could bring a harassment claim, or
so sexual.
It could be. I mean, the facts and circumstances have to be more specific. I'm just kind of giving generalities, but I mean, it could even be the way they were talking to an employee. It could be a higher up superior talking to someone below them in terms of the pecking order of the company, and the way that, they were talking to them. That could be a violation in terms of how they deal with the personnel. But if you have a consistent progressive disciplinary policy that everyone's subject to the same policy, there's no arbitrariness. Because under the law, if you terminate someone, as Florida and most states are at-will employment states. What does at-will employment mean? Your
You can
employer,
fire whoever you
they
want.
can terminate anybody, anytime, anywhere, for any reason, as long as, right, they don't have an employment contract that states are subject to a different term and termination rights. But they can't do it for a discriminatory purpose, or they can't do it for a retaliatory purpose, like if someone had a whistleblower claim or something like that, and they were going to bring it. So again, now, if you don't have policies, the argument employees can make, or the lawyers can make, are, well, look, you had no policies. You didn't treat this employee the same when you fired 5 other ones, if you do discovery and find out all the information. And so what ends up happening is that lawyer now has an avenue to say, you had no objective criteria to terminate this employee. It looks personal, or that you intended to discriminate. And companies get caught up where, let's say they terminated 4 women before that, let's say over the past 2 years. It's only been women that have been terminated for 4 years. Now it's a 5th woman. It looks like you're just discriminating against women. The case just got stronger, and the settlement capability just got bigger. So if you don't track and follow policies and, discipline the same way, and do your terminations the same way in terms of what they're based on, you're going to create avenues for attorneys or obviously for other people to have claims against the company, where if you do it a lot cleaner, it reduces the risk capacity that a company has for exposure on those types of claims, because they were following a consistent policy.
Now,
and that's a big issue companies don't do.
Are there situations where an employer may be letting go of employees that are not, Johnny Walker Blue, we get it. We get it. Yeah.
Wow.
So smooth.
This guy's over there drinking a White Claw,
so fucking
dog.
loving it.
Tastes so good.
So are there situations where an employer may release an employee and another employee and not actually realize that they are discriminating, because they're not.
Absolutely.
They're just firing
Absolutely.
somebody who is not doing anything for the business. Yeah. And then they turn around and they realize, oh shit, I'm getting fucked because I just released, like you said, women or men or whatever it may
or
be.
Or different religion, gender.
Or religion,
anything.
yeah.
Exactly, correct.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't my intention. I was just letting go of the individual that brought the least amount of value to our company. For if you were defending the business owner that was getting sued for releasing those individuals.
Multiple people at the same time,
and they were getting sued for discrimination.
Yeah.
How would you defend that? Would you say, hey, listen, now we're going to provide productive not schedules, but productive information that shows, hey, we released them for these reasons. Well, we weren't being discriminatory. We were just releasing them because they were not efficient.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen.
How would you defend that?
So absolutely, because
you brought it up.
There's 2 points I'm gonna make here, because it raised another issue collaterally to what you were saying. That's actually a good thing to talk about, because companies face this a lot. And I actually just had 2 cases like this, so it's good I can give real world examples on this. But to answer the first part of your question in terms of how I would defend it, you have to do exactly what you just did first. Every company's lawyers or in-house counsel or outside counsel will do the same thing, which is that if anybody's claiming they were wrongfully terminated or that the employer didn't have a proper purpose, it is the employer's duty to defend themselves, to say, look, we understand at-will employment law means we can fire you anytime. We know that we can't do it for a discriminatory purpose, right, like I said, and that it can't be for a issue related to retaliation. But the company's going to say, look, we're a lot safer because we can prove that their conduct over time or how they performed, right? It's always performance issues. If you can prove performance issues, now it takes everything outside of the discriminatory reason. You can show a motive unrelated to to discrimination or retaliation, or that you have some other motive, then you're complying with the law now. So your exposure gets reduced, because it doesn't look like you're making arbitrary employment decisions, right? Or separation decisions because you made them based on race or based on gender or religion or whatever it was.
You're probably like
straight performance.
You would need performance reviews.
Performance-based, exactly. And that's why I tell you, for companies, because this circles back to what I just said, it tells you now as a company, small business, medium size, it's important, have a policy handbook with policies, with progressive disciplinary policies, because if you can show they've been written up 3 times, you already have that in your arsenal. So to answer again, the number one way to defend any type of action against an employer is show that you have objective criteria and analysis of performance-based issues. Then it takes it out of anything, regardless if there even was intent or otherwise. But you really have to make sure that you can show that constructive basis that, in fact, look, our decision on this termination is solely related to performance. You can't say any other claim you want to make, go ahead, we have this evidence, and that's literally what it is. Write-ups, complaints, bad sales numbers over time. Those numbers don't lie.
Email
right?
correspondence.
Anything. That's my point. So that's when you ask me how to defend it, that's the number one way is with that hard evidence, because it's the proof that shows there was no other motive. This is straight business decision based on productivity, based on the inability to be cooperative with other employees in the business, whatever it is. So that's your number one way. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, because you raised this without even probably thinking you were raising it, but it's a great question, is when do you see mass layoffs or a lot of people being separated from their employment? Well, it's called a RIF, which means reduction in force, where companies will terminate multiple people at one time because they want to save a lot of costs. You see a lot of times when there's acquisitions or two companies are merging, they just, they don't want too many people performing the same job. They'll start cutting people. Exactly, it's not. But the problem is companies don't do it right. Sometimes they don't realize, oh my God, 78% of the people we let go were men and the rest were women. Well, why is there such a huge disparity? Again, the employer has to debate that and show, well, our numbers have always been more substantially men than women in the employment workplace or whatever it is. But a lot of times what the lawyers are getting creative with now, and I just did 2 of these where I was representing the plaintiffs.
Sounds like the lawyers are fucking
I was representing the plaintiffs. Well, companies now are laying off almost more people than they need to so they can cover different age brackets, different race brackets, age, gender brackets. Like the severance agreement I reviewed a couple weeks ago that I got from a company, which I can't say, for my client, because my client wanted to bring a claim for wrongful termination. We wanted to renegotiate their severance. They had, and this is how serious they get to avoid these claims, they literally sent a chart. It was like an Excel sheet. It had every single employee's name who was in the RIF that was being terminated all at the same time, right? There's about 75 people. It had literally their age, their gender, their race, the years of experience. It had all that stuff on there so that if lawyers saw this, they could say, wow, it wasn't just anybody over the age of 40, which creates age discrimination claims if you're over 40. It had all these different things where it said, look, lawyers, you have no claim. And so that's how creative they're trying to get now, because back in the day, they wouldn't have those types of spreadsheets with that kind of detailed information. But now they are. And so they'll make sure, too, in RIFs, companies will do this, and they can take the the information as they want. But sometimes companies will make sure they even terminate higher up people, and even the people at the lowest bottom of the barrel in the company, and everybody in between. So there's a fair cross section. And so that way it doesn't look like you're doing certain types of like wage discrimination based on them being male, females, or a certain type of religion or race. So yeah, they're getting very creative with it. And companies, I don't think they're doing it because I'm obviously...
Even though there may not be a base for it.
Well, right. I mean, exactly. They're just doing it
like
to
the owner may
themselves.
not be knowing he's doing it.
I'm very pro-business. And I'm telling you that the business are doing this because they want to avoid claims coming against them. They're like, look, we don't have any ill will. We know we'll save $1.5 million a year on payroll because we have enough people that can kind of do the same jobs or double dip. We don't need all this payroll burden. So they release all these employees. But if you don't do it right, those claims can come back to haunt you. It's going to cost you more than 1.5 to defend or settle all those cases. So it's important for an employer to make sure that they're following those rules and guidelines.
All right. When we get back, Happy Hour Holidays, we want to kind of talk to Steve and see what the most challenging ethical dilemma he's dealt with as a corporate lawyer
That's a good question.
For a lot of businesses and how he navigated through it. So we'll be right back. You guys like, comment, and subscribe, and continue to tune in for business stories, life stories, and becoming an entrepreneur. And we're back with Happy Hour Holidays, and Steve wants to give a special shout out to his son's quarterback coach, Steven Garcia. Steve, go ahead. Go ahead, say it.
He's the legend, bro.
Give him a shout out, bro.
I'm giving him a huge shout out. I was just singing his praises, man. He's doing a good job. He coaches a lot of quarterbacks.
Did you ask us if that's where Steven Garcia's at?
I did ask that. I already knew that. I watched the pod.
Steven, you could probably charge him more.
No. The rate's perfect, Steve. All right, so what else you want to talk about, man?
Yeah. So we were talking about, I mean, I know you've been, corporate lawyer at quite a few big firms. Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking, like, as far as situationally, what was the biggest dilemma that you have ethically with somebody you had to either defend on the business or against the business?
Well, you know what they say about situations, right?
Yeah.
They're situational. So there's been several.
When you're saying ethically, are you talking about, like, it goes against his moral code?
No.
Well,
It's
that can be
ethical.
one, but I was
No,
gonna
ethical
open-
against the law.
Well, yeah, because lawyers
Well,
are
have you
guided
ever-
by the model rules of professional responsibility. You actually have to take a test. You can't even
DBPR, right?
You can't even. It's called the MPRE.
Okay.
And so you can't even go to law school and sit for the bar exam if you haven't passed the MPRE. So,
What's the PRE?
it's the
stand
Modern
for?
Professional Responsibility and Ethics Test. Yeah, but it basically means modern rules of professional responsibility is the code that guides it, and the MPRE tests you only on ethical dilemmas when you're practicing. And there's a ton.
Can you give examples?
Oh, I'll give you tons. Like there's rules you learn in law school in cases. You're like, what the heck? Like there's one like you can't sleep with your clients unless you were sleeping with them before they were your client. Like that's a rule.
Wasn't that a Jim Carrey?
There's
movie
rules
he did
where,
that?
I mean, it's even like how you handle money. Like when your clients pay you a retainer and you haven't earned all the money yet, you can't keep it and think it's your money. It's got to go in a separate account, trust account, and you can only draw down the amounts that you've earned. If the representation ends and there's still money left, you got to get it back to your client. You don't get to keep all the money. So there's accounting, dilemmas. There's big ones that I've had. And to answer your question, the biggest one is where you've done work for two parties, let's say, and
Opposing parties or
well, let's just say that they're
separate parties?
I'll just give you an example because this is one I dealt with before, where it's two businesses, right? And you do work for them where it's not when they're doing work together, you do it separately. Then they decide to do some joint work, and you have a rule automatically to let them each know, look, there could be a conflict. Because I have information about both of you, if I was representing you, either one of you could say, look, you're using the information you learned about me to help them. So your representation's more skewed to help and tailor them. You're not giving me 100%. And that's a likelihood possibility. If there's a substantial likelihood of a material limitation in the representation, you have to withdraw. And you can't just keep doing it. Some lawyers will try to press it because they want to keep getting paid. But you can't do that.
Have you
cannot.
done that?
Yeah, no. I mean, listen. You have if you're a lawyer, you should be respectful and grateful that you're doing this practice because it's a great job. But you have to also respect the sanctity of the attorney-client relationship, and you have to understand that if you're going to limit their ability to have the best representation they can get, you got to get out and return money to them or whatever it is. You have to, and that's an obligation that lawyers have to do. And so there's times where they'll say, "Look, it's no problem. Let's do it." As an attorney, you can say, look, I don't see one right now. There's a likelihood. You can get what's called a conflict of interest waiver, where they each sign and say, I'm aware there's a conflict. You've told me. I'm willing to waive it. Let's keep going. And that's legal for lawyers to do it. But if it's getting to a point where it looks like it's clear that one party could be saying that you're favoring them over another, you've got to get out because you're not giving them the proper representation.
As an attorney, I mean, do you really want that kind of situation?
No, most attorneys just stay out of it. Well, listen,
because
whenever
you said you had an example, you told us the
that's
example.
pretty much the example.
And that was it, right? I mean,
and you withdraw.
Did you act?
You withdraw.
You withdrew?
I don't want to walk the ethical line like that.
Did you withdraw? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, you withdraw.
Yeah,
100%.
Because you don't want to walk. Yeah.
No, what you're gonna
line,
let one moment ruin the rest of your career. You just withdraw.
Maybe
there's
get
other
disbarred,
cases.
Maybe
You
get
can.
disbarred,
You get sanctioned. It's just not worth it.
But going back to that, Steve, have you ever dealt with opposing counsel that has been
I've seen
so
opposing counsel.
difficult or such a pain in the ass where you're like,
yeah,
or maybe I wouldn't say broke the ethical rule and law, but at the same time,
borderline it.
Borderline.
Of course,
you've seen it all the time.
Of course, and it's usually the older ones.
Did you get a
who've done it
Harvey
long
Specter?
time.
You ever go against the Harvey Specter?
I'll be honest with you.
I don't mean the fictional character. I mean, you ever go against
No.
somebody kind of like that?
No,
It's not real life.
it's not. There's no one really.
Well, you were talking about, breaking the ethical line. I mean,
Well, I was saying
naturally.
for opposing counsel.
Yeah, opposing
obviously
counsel.
Steve's not going to, but I mean, there's
No.
other people that.
Yeah, there's lawyers that walk the ethical line all the time. There's ones that sometimes they'll break privilege, which you should never do. There's lawyers who,
what
like
does
I
it
said,
mean to break privilege?
well, you're sharing information that under the rules of modern professional responsibility, you are given information that your clients give you. You can't just share it against their interests, or you can't share it at all because it's considered private, right? Because think about it. People won't hire lawyers anymore if they don't think that the information they're telling their lawyer to help them win their case is going to be told to anybody else. And if you watch, I mean, it's funny, there's a movie called The Firm with Tom Cruise from like the 80s. Unbelievable discussion. He has a great monologue about attorney-client privilege because this law firm is actually trying to kill him.
Is it with Jack Nicholson in it?
No, that was A Few Good Men, which was awesome
Oh,
cross-examination scene of him. Yeah, like, I eat breakfast.
You can't
with
handle
4,000
the
Cubans
truth.
trying to kill me. You can't,
Yeah.
all those great lines. Jack Nicholson's a legend. But anyway, the point is, in that movie, he gives a great example where he says, there's a law firm trying to kill him because they know he has information that could bury the client of theirs. And he says, look, attorney-client privilege is like a ship at sea. It can just go, because the waters are never ending. As long as a boat can continue to stay in the water, which it can, it'll just continue to float. The privilege stays like that. It doesn't end. And that was the kind of, the analogy he gave about attorney-client privilege that brought everybody to be, calm, because they're like, you're right, that privilege exists. Because otherwise, it's like, going to church and doing confession, you talk to a priest.
Yeah.
They're bound by privilege the same way, minus the small exceptions. Like if you're telling them you're going to go kill somebody tomorrow, well, you might have to go and tell the authorities this could happen. There's certain kinds of things like that. But I mean, it's very rare occurrences. But the point is that privilege stays solid and you can't break it. Like,
if someone told that to a lawyer, could the lawyer say anything?
Only if there's like extreme likelihood of danger to the health, safety, and well-being. If someone can a lawyer disclose information their clients told them, but like where a body could be buried, or like O.J. Simpson's lawyers, if he told him he did it or whatever it was allegedly, right?
Well, the glove didn't fit, so they must
have
have quit.
It's a whole different debate and pod we should do one day. But but my whole point is, whatever those attorneys know, it'll die with them at the grave. They can never disclose that information, and so that's what's important. And again, you can't do that to gain a strategic advantage over someone or trade information to try to get favors in a case or to do something. And sometimes, lawyers may not always follow those ethical guidelines, and they have to. So hopefully that kind of helps answer your question. About
another thing, Steve, is like when you were leaving law school, what did you find fascinating about corporate and business law that put you down this route?
Great question, man. Because when I went to law school, I wanted to be a criminal defense lawyer because it's all you see on TV. Well, yeah,
Morgan.
Well, growing up, I mean, I grew up in Canada, but I saw a lot of the same American TV shows that you guys all see. But like, everything romanticized was in the courtroom, defending people who committed a murder. Guy killed his wife. Guy killed his business partner. Guy killed his. It was all that. And so
there's no efficacy.
No one was romanticizing corporate law, in my opinion, at least in the days I was growing up in the 90s and stuff like that, and early 2000s. And so you don't realize that. So I went to law school. I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney.
He grew up in the 80s.
I wanted to. Not that old, but I was born in the 80s. But it's funny because it's such a great question, because this is the answer. You realize when you go to law school, you realize there's so many different avenues of law you've never heard about, whether it's wills and trusts in estates, or whether it's family law, personal injury, whatever. Yeah. But to me, I took contracts one, had a great professor, Kevin Scott, and I remember him just telling me that, he said I was out, you're good at this, contracts is great. Is this what you want to do? And I said, no, I want to be a criminal defense attorney. He's like, well, you might want to rethink it. And he started showing me like, business runs the world. And when you start seeing that, you're growing up and you realize business runs the world, it's not going anywhere. I was like, yeah, I want to practice that, because business is never going to stop. Why would you not want to practice in something, to me, that, will always be there? And I love business in general. I like entrepreneurship. I like seeing companies grow, the different challenges that companies face, the ways to resolve those challenges, whether it's complications for, a company trying to raise money with their investors. And there's always solutions and ways to be creative to, raise capital and still be compliant with the law, and to make, the stock structure where everybody's getting a good piece of the business and they have some type of benefit or exit rights or dilution rights, whatever it is. And so there's a lot of room to be creative in business. And I enjoy that aspect of it. So that's why I love business law. But again, like you asked, that's really what drew me to corporate law, was that, look, business runs the world. The world is based on a series of transactions that happen every single minute, hour, day. So why would you not want to participate in that? There's always money to be made and business to be done, and I wanted to be in it.
Why did your professor tell you, hey, maybe you might want to rethink this?
Well, I mean, I think it's probably because, it was only, I'm a first year law student, so it's not like as much he could have seen, but I think he saw. I'm always asking questions.
It,
yeah. Well, I was always asking questions because I was intrigued, I was interested, and there's a lot to learn. Contracts is a broad subject, and I think he saw, that I cared about it, that I liked it, and I ended up doing well in the class.
He wasn't like, "Yo, this guy might be a shitty defense
attorney." He didn't want to. Dwight Howard.
That's what he said. He didn't want to Dwight Howard.
No, he cared, and
it was. Where I put my wood.
Great class. Great. It was a great class. And
what class was it?
Contracts 1.
Contract 1?
Contracts 1. They taught it in 2
You had
sections.
to take that if you wanted to be a criminal defense attorney?
You have to take all these classes in law school that are required by
the contract law professor told you, hey, listen, bro, you probably shouldn't practice defense.
No, he didn't say that at all. He just said, you're really good at this. Have you considered this? And he goes, what do you want to do? I told him what I want to do. He just goes, oh, you should consider this.
And he was right.
Look at this opportunity.
And he was right?
I listened to him. He's never wrong.
Because, I mean, you have a lot of high-profile clients.
Yeah.
So he helped you out.
Exactly.
Kevin Scott.
I mean, you can.
Or was it Michael Scott?
No, it's Kevin. You can get a lot of high-profile clients doing criminal defense. Don't get me wrong.
But
if you're that kind of lawyer, but you can get a lot of high-profile clients.
Yeah, but you're defending criminals, man.
Listen, everybody's entitled to a defense.
Yeah,
you're
sure,
innocent
sure.
until proven guilty.
I got nothing against criminals. Innocent until proven guilty.
Hey, so
OJ.
Fuck. Well, what kind of cautionary tales or notable mistakes that you've seen businesses?
Damn, ChatGPT keeps getting them. He's getting it.
Go, let him finish. Objection.
Go fuck yourself. Any cautionary tales or notable mistakes that business owners have made due to lack of legal counsel?
Hiring Steve Fantetti.
I mean, one of them we just talked about today, which is
setting
up your HR. No, setting up your HR processes and how you properly hire and fire personnel and making sure you're doing it, based on an objective criteria of policies that you've created. Some companies don't even create that stuff. That's one. I think a big one is contracts as well. Like a lot of companies who offer a service, let's say, or a product, and they use their master services agreement or their licensing agreement, whatever the product or service is. A lot of times they'll get one from a company and they just will sign it. And they don't realize a big pitfall is, I didn't realize this was a 5-year deal, and they're locked in. They have no exit right because they didn't negotiate terms.
We did this.
Now you're locked in for 5 years, and you have to either pay to get out of the contract the money you owe anyway, or you're going to breach if you stop paying for or taking the service. So that's a big one, and that can bankrupt companies. But I mean, there's other ones that are big too. I mean, you can agree to things in the contract, for instance, like limitation of liability or indemnification clauses, where those clauses basically mean where, let's say, if you are responsible for covering the legal fees and damages for the other party that you're contracting with if something goes wrong. Well, the problem is those could be huge. If you don't cap those damages, I will agree to indemnify you if I infringe on your patent or whatever it is, or let's say whatever the contract's for. But I'm going to limit it to 2 times the fees I've paid you under the contract. I'm not going to just pay leave them open-ended and uncapped. That bankrupts companies because they agree to open-ended indemnification and liability clauses. So these are things in contracts that the normal person would not know.
Do they include that in contracts?
What's that, sorry?
Paying for
paying the other party for losses that you might have contributed to, or that they did lose, paying for their attorney's fees. You're going to pay for all that if you indemnify somebody. A lot of times that's how those clauses are drafted.
Is that in our contract?
Which contracts?
How
many of you even had me look at?
No. Hey, Steve, the one you did look at.
The ones I look at, you're good. The ones I haven't, I don't know.
All right,
Hey, Steve, so the majority of mergers and acquisitions, do they always have a morality clause in them?
Well, I mean, technically, almost every contract should have that in it.
Yeah. But let's say the business owners go against it and they're like, hey, I don't want to put a morality clause in it. I mean, what does that even entail overall?
Yeah, because that's a broad question. Because there's so many contracts in a merger and acquisition. Depends which one you're talking about. Not all of them are going to have a morality clause. But then you're going to have clauses where, you've signed a letter of intent to eventually get to the deal where it closes. And there's obligations you have during that time, especially confidentiality, and of course, probably to act morally. It's all in there. But to get to the root of your question about what's a morality clause and what it's for, a lot of times I see this a lot here. There's a lot of contracts I do in this area for a lot of venues and restaurants in the Tampa, St. Pete area. And a lot of times when you have business partners with you who've all invested, right? You don't want someone who's going to bring negative publicity or put the company in a negative light or disrepute because of their conduct. And so you put a morality clause in, and that morality clause will basically state things like, if you get a felony or DUI, or if you, do indecent exposure, or if you say something on like a radio show or podcast that's negative. Well, that's what I'm saying, they could say Elon Musk violated a morals clause in the contract by smoking weed on Joe Rogan because it dropped their stock price. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. It depends how you structure the morality clause.
Have you seen it where it's been left out, or is that always something pretty standard?
Oh, no.
And then what's the definition of a morality clause?
Well, he just did.
So,
he just said
yeah, well, I mean, that's just in general. I mean, you can define that term any way you want in your contract. But a lot of those things I said about like
opposing the company,
getting a felony conviction or even a misdemeanor conviction, things that could make because to say, listen,
whatever makes
it's like the classic NFL
bad.
player. No matter what the player did or sports athlete, They're going to say so-and-so who plays offensive line for the New England Patriots. Then New England Patriots brand just got brought into this, even though he did something totally unrelated to football. That's where you're affecting the brand. And that's a morality.
So it's like Ray
violation.
Rice.
That's exactly right. And so what happens is the morality clause protects companies because it's a way for them to exit large contracts on their books because they don't want to be tied to keep paying this person when all they're doing is dropping the value of the business by being attached to it. So the morality clause lets a company say, look, we can let this person go or this company or partner go because of what they did by violating the clause. We don't have to keep paying them, but we can publicly say, oh, we terminate our contract with him. He's not here anymore or she's not here anymore. And therefore that lets the public know we stand for something. We are moral. We don't condone that behavior. And now that person's off our books or we're not paying them. And so it's a way really for a company to protect itself, not just from paying somebody under a contract, but it's also to show the public that, you know, we have some morals ourselves and there's just things that we don't condone. And it helps them, especially if they have marketing contracts or you want people to keep buying your products. Because you've seen the stories, people will boycott buying Nikes. They'll stop buying beer of a company or whatever their morals might be. Those things come up. And so companies need to have a morality clause in their contracts for those reasons. And again, a lot
to protect the company.
To protect the company. That's why you'll see, and again, it's a big mistake that a lot of small businesses make, because they won't get lawyers involved and they don't have clauses like that to protect them. So if one of the business owners, you know, was running down, you know, Hyde Park, you know, naked, and just making up a random story.
Talk about old school again.
Exactly. Well, I'm just thinking about things you could do. But like that, if they say so-and-so got arrested for indecent exposure, oh, by the way, he's the owner of, you know, Timpano or whatever. I'm just making the story up. Then people are going to say, oh, don't go there. They only deal with people who are shady or do bad things. And so again, now Timpano could exercise his morality clause and say, no, this owner, we've just exited this guy from the company. He's no longer affiliated with us. And everyone goes, oh, okay, good. So you guys are, you know, have some
company's still tarnished.
So right, but again, that's the argument, and they can go back and sue that person if they feel they're still damaged or losses. But at least you have the ability to exit them because you might owe these people lots of money over the next 5-10 years, depending on how the contract's structured. So these are one of many exit routes you can have in a contract. That's on my list of one of 10 different ways to exit, like right away.
And then we're gonna have to end this argument real quick. You want to close it out?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say
18 seconds.
When we come back, we want to know some misconceptions about people exiting businesses. We actually want to know what are the true facts. People think you just sell and all of a sudden you're gone. It's not like that. Steve's gonna explain what actually are deals when you exit.
And I will always love you. And then we're back here on Happy Hour Holidays with our host, Manny Febre, and with our guest, Steven. Is this Steve or Steven?
Doesn't matter, whatever you want.
No, is your name actually Steven?
My real name is Steven, but I don't care if you're
Steven Fantetti. Sounds like a
Never
bra.
heard it that way.
Sounds like a bra.
Sounds like you were in The Sopranos saying it that way.
Hey, listen, if I was in The Sopranos, you wouldn't be alive.
I'm Italian. What are you talking about?
I'm Italian too.
You're Cuban, bro.
It's all the same shit.
Different mafia. Same stuff, different mafia now.
I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, a lot of Italians went to Cuba, right?
Depends what time.
I would assume
like when
so.
like Mussolini was in the communist
Mussolini,
stuff,
that's 45, bro.
Oh, it's before 45. He got killed.
Well, Mussolini was one of the Axis powers.
He was a dictator, correct? Yeah. Yep.
So,
he aligned with Hitler, and then he switched sides, and he went back again, I think.
Did he ever switch sides?
Oh, yeah. That's what he's known for.
God, actually, talking about switching sides here, you're a conspiracy theorist.
I mean, I love conspiracy.
Wait, we had a question.
Oh, yeah. Let's finish with that.
Let's finish with that.
Because every time we've potted, well, we only potted once, but we ended with some conspiracy, which was great. So let's end with one today. Every time we talk.
Yeah. Well, we ended with historical fiction last time.
I'll answer your question right now first, which was a good one. Yeah. Do you remember what it was?
No.
Okay, it was a good question. His question was, I love it. Rewind the tape.
What was it?
Back up.
What was it?
I remember what it was, so I'll say it.
Oh, okay.
So he asked me, what are the common misconceptions in like mergers and acquisitions and deals that generally occur where, you know, people outside looking in may not realize, you know, what's the realities of it? Like, How difficult is it? You know, what may you still be on the hook for? Is it always a complete breakaway?
Correct.
Things like this. And so it's not always roses is basically what you're
Yeah.
saying. And the answer to that is correct. It's not always smooth. Because I will tell you this, I've done a lot of mergers and acquisitions in my career, and I will tell you that no deal is the same. I've learned that from an attorney I used to work with. She was great. She told me, look, the way you do the deal is always the same. You're going to fight for the same things depending what side you're on. You're going to draft the same documents, a lot of the same terms, but there's always going to be different facts and circumstances. They'll just twist it a little bit to make it a little bit different. And so that is going to be something that you always have to deal with as an attorney. But being on the end of the buyer or seller, the people who are actually going to cash out or who are going to take the business over, that's different because it's not just always smooth. Because there's different ways, that's why I prefaced it about different facts and different ways to do a deal, where it's not clean. Like, and what I mean by clean is like it's not rosy for everybody. So for instance, you could be buying a business and you guys might not agree on price. And so a lot of times what happens is people agree to something that's called an earn-out, which means, look, I'm going to give you, because we can't agree on price, I'll give you 50% of the purchase price now, but keep operating the business, and we'll share the revenues, etc. And you agree to an earn-out period, let's say after 2 years. If the business meets or exceeds the number that you think the business is worth and what you bring in, then I'll pay more for what it's worth. I'll pay your purchase price. But if it's underperforming that and it's less, I get to pay my purchase price, which was less than you wanted. So people think they're selling their business for big money, realize I might not get the purchase price I thought I was getting.
Does that happen often?
I'm good. Yeah, thank you for asking. I got Johnny welcome.
Does that happen often? Where
it happens more often than people think. It's not the traditional way. You won't see it in smaller like business sales, but
in terms of business sales, what would you say the purchase price of the business? Where does it happen most frequently?
Where you see that type of a deal?
Yeah.
I mean,
$10 million business.
I would say 50 or more generally.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be big money that you're fighting over. Very rarely will people do an earn out when they're fighting over $500,000.
And if somebody's looking to sell their business,
yeah,
what would you say is the most ideal situation for someone to actually achieve selling their business in terms of maybe having a certain amount of EBITDA, whatever it may be? What would you say is the best situation for someone to sell a small business?
So that's a good question. It's kind of loaded because you need facts to answer that question. But
make assumptions.
I'll just tell you generally. I'll just tell you generally.
Yeah.
Like a dream scenario of what you'd want to fall
into.
How
about realistically?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What would be a great thing? I mean, I've done deals where, and then let me know if I'm on the same path as this. But what I mean is like, look, you know, you're able to justify. You have good numbers. Your EBITDA rates are accurate in terms of what you're presenting. You can have good projections for where the business will go over time. You have contracts solidified that shows you're going to have business coming in day one. We're not going to have to fight for a while to keep revenue recurring.
What if you don't have contracts?
Well, then that makes our scenario terrible. So then that would be a not good scenario to answer your question.
Let's talk about the not good scenario.
Okay, so a terrible scenario to sell your business would be
not terrible, just
okay. One
maybe
that's less favorable.
Likely.
Less favorable.
Yeah.
It's going to be less favorable to you to be able to sell your business for a good deal if your EBITDA is inconsistent.
No, what if the EBITDA is the same?
Okay.
But there's no contracts with your clients.
So there's no contracts that show that day one, because they don't know who you are, new business buyer, that they're going to stick with you. They might terminate their contracts they have. They're not going to stay on. They're not locked in. Or there's no contracts at all. They all expire pretty soon. Then that means they're going to have to go back and fight for new revenue. I just bought a business where I can't even operate and keep money coming in the door. So you want to have contracts solidified for sure. Personnel is big. You might have people who leave. You might have people where you don't have non-competes with them, and they can create a competing venture. Like these are things as well you don't want to have when you're buying. I'm
gonna have to be very specific now.
Be specific. Okay. You asked a very loaded, broad question.
Yeah, I did, and now I'm getting it.
Okay, good. There you go.
All right. So let's say
I know
you have a business.
Hurry up, Dwight.
Wow, yeah, that's good. Come on, come on, man. Come on, man. We're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice.
Ask your question. We got conspiracy theories to talk about. Hurry up. We gotta
go. So I'm trying to get free advice here because every time I talk to Steve, he charges.
But first of all, when's the last time I invoiced you?
Yeah,
and by the way,
exactly.
I forgot to open by saying we are not billing for this podcast. That hurts. Sean, that hurts.
No, actually, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. I like it.
I'm feeling Sean for my time in that bottle. No, go ahead.
So let's say you have a business
Yeah.
that is around $750,000 in EBITDA.
Great question. Yeah.
And then
Very specific.
The very specific. The company makes 3 times that in
Yes.
revenue.
Yes.
And the company has been in business for 7 years.
Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds pretty fucking
Sounds like a
familiar.
McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
Keep
Could
going.
be,
Keep
could be.
going. Keep going.
And they don't have contracts with their clients,
Mhm.
yet the company has shown a proven track record
That's okay.
of generating revenue,
Yeah.
and that revenue increases by 20% each year.
That's great. Maybe it might. It might not.
No, I'm telling you, it does.
Okay. I'm just saying maybe it might not.
Yeah,
we
you
might.
know,
We may not want it to. No.
Well,
what I'm trying to tell you is this, though.
actually, maybe the last year it didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah,
maybe there's like a downswing coming.
There-
But
yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you now that congratulations on asking a more direct question because that helps me give you.
Yeah, because it's not broad. No more.
Yeah, he's like, tell me what happens when the sun's out.
What?
I'm just messing with you.
Do
I love you. So
Oh, you keep bringing up Dwight, dog. I mean, what the fuck?
Too soon for that.
Yeah.
No, but so listen, fantastic question. Here's the thing I would tell you is that it doesn't matter.
No, don't tell me. Tell the audience.
Well, right, but based on your question, first of all, you can poke holes in any situation that you set up. What I will tell you is, yes, that's great that you're showing the revenue. Yes, that's great that despite contracts, you have money coming in and you might be up 20% every year, right? Whatever that is. The problem is it's never going to stop a sophisticated buyer to say, when I take this business on, how do I know with you guys gone? Unless you stay on it.
Whoa, we're not talking about our business.
No, I didn't say you guys. The
Oh.
people who are the sellers.
Okay.
With the sellers, sensitive. With the sellers,
Attorney-client privilege.
unless the sellers stay on, it's already waived. Unless the sellers stay on in a transitional service type of capacity to help and keep those relationships intact. A sophisticated, because I make this argument for my clients, I'll say, well, listen, you're charging too much. And they're going to say, well, what do you have a basis for that? And I'm going to tell you right now, based on your scenario, is how do you know all these clients will come back? How do you know you're going to have recurring
Because
business?
of the name.
How do you know they weren't coming because of you, but you're no longer affiliated with the business anymore? You gave up on it. You left. So how can you
Not
guarantee?
gave up on it.
Hold on. I'm making an argument, sir. How do you know, right, that just because you're telling me this revenue's coming in while you were here, that it's still going to be here and you have no contracts? You have no justified basis to tell me I'm guaranteed based on the projections you've shown that that's still going to happen. It very may well, but you're not. I'm saying I can't justify the price because there's not enough comfortability for me in your business with locked up agreements.
What grocery store do you shop at?
A lot of them.
How
Hey,
many?
Steve,
How many?
No free shout outs, bro. I shop at one.
Do you ever go to Walmart?
No.
Do you ever go to Target?
No. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You drink Bud
Be,
Light?
no, not
I
that.
drink Johnny Walker Blue.
So let me ask you a question.
Go
Do you go?
ahead. My man.
Do you go to a Target in a different city if there's a Target?
No, I live in Tampa.
Motherfucker.
Listen, you're trying to create an argument against the wrong guy.
No,
I
I'm
love
not.
you,
No. Do you visit
Let's say
an establishment?
I will play along with your scenario. Go
Okay,
ahead.
play along with
Yeah.
it. Do you visit an establishment because of the brand name?
Oh, I see what you're saying. The flaw in your argument is that your premise is wrong because when you
Well, first of all,
Yeah,
what
you-
did you assume my premise was?
I didn't assume it. You gave it to me.
What
Your
was
premise
it?
was a small business. You said $750,000, right?
No,
Target
that's
is
not
not
what
a
I said.
$750,000
I didn't
net
say
revenue company.
750,000.
Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
No, I said EBITDA was 750.
Okay, even that. You think Target's EBITDA is $750
No, they're
grand?
$1 billion
Well,
fucking
now
company.
you're doing apples and oranges, man. So if
No,
you want to be
but-
consistent, you just did the wrong premise there. So I can't answer
I can't
that question.
argue with the lawyer.
I'm
man.
just- I'm right.
gonna lose every
I'm
time.
right, but
I'm
I'm
gonna
right.
lose every time.
But I get your point.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're
Nobody
talking-
uses it
You're
because
talking about something different. You're talking about, listen, brand
No.
integrity over
You
time.
said why would the customer still go to that
Correct.
business?
But Target's,
Brand integrity.
Target's got 50, whatever, how many years it is of brand integrity going. If it's a small business with $750,000 EBITDA, that's not enough to move the needle as a buyer.
What would be
for me
enough?
to tell my client?
What would be enough?
I don't know. It depends on the facts and circumstances. I don't know what the product or service is. It could be something that's recession-proof,
Service
something
based.
that's not. Well, what is it? Is
It's
it so-
COVID.
Is it software?
It's COVID proof. It's
Okay.
COVID proof.
Well, what's COVID proof? Give me an example.
Everything.
Okay.
Face
so
mask.
If you're
Yeah, face mask. Thank you.
use them in the hospitals.
Yeah, yeah.
If your business can last through any type of scenario, which is obviously not guaranteed. I mean, the stock market can't last through any situation.
Yeah, no shit.
So that's a great argument you can use to defend and counter me, but it's not the one that's going to be the end all be all. But you have to understand is that when you're buying and selling a business, it's all straight negotiation. You're going to make the argument you just made, no matter how tenuous or crazy it might have sounded, and no matter how sound my arguments were to lower the price.
If you call them sound,
I'm just trying to be facetious and funny. But at the end of the day, it's important to know that you need a lot of those specific facts about those deals, and that everybody will make arguments. But again, it's a back and forth negotiation.
Where'd you go to law school?
Your
Steve?
arguments just need to be stronger than mine and more compelling.
Where'd you go to law school?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan.
Yeah.
How long do you have to be in law school to become a lawyer?
Well, generally it takes 3 years.
That's it?
I did.
I thought it was 4.
That's it. You need an undergrad degree. Then you got to go to law school for at least 3 years.
Isn't that 7 years?
I stayed after I got an LLM in as a master's in corporate law and finance for my law school as well. I wanted to do an extra degree because I wanted to focus in the area.
That's 7 years, right?
Yeah, 4 years undergrad, 3 years of law school, and then I did another 2 years for my LLM.
That's 9 years.
Yeah.
Holy fucking Christ.
Hey, we need to leave
I can't argue with him.
More knowledge you got.
We need to leave some time for the
quick conspiracy. What's a quick one? Go ahead.
Oh,
this guy wants to debate bias. I love it.
Get off
the JFK. Let's save that. Unless you have one question about the assassin, I'll talk about it.
Hey, we got 6 minutes. So.
Pick one. I don't care what the conspiracy here is. What?
Okay, I'll pick
Cheerios aren't Cheerios.
The Twin Towers. The Twin Towers.
No, not that one. I can't touch that one.
Actually, that's a good one.
It's a good one. I can't talk about that one.
No?
Why not? Times. What else you got?
I don't really have any other conspiracies besides that.
Okay.
That's my
No. I got one. Abraham Lincoln.
What's the conspiracy?
Assassination.
So what? John Wilkes Booth didn't do it? What do you mean? Who did it? Was he in a government personnel? That's an argument people have saying.
Well, I mean, who planned it? You think John Wilkes?
How about if we could just give the audience a little teaser of the JFK?
It's up to you, but
no, we can't do that. He hasn't released his book.
I know, but it's just a tiny.
I can't. If I give one little idea, something could go wrong with it, and my book is over. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Are aliens real?
We talked about this last podcast.
No, we didn't.
I said, yeah, I believe in aliens.
Did you listen to the podcast that we released?
Were you
on it?
Of course, I listened to it.
Okay, did we talk about aliens?
Yeah.
No,
that was with somebody else. That was
with episode 7.
Yeah. You asked me if I believe in aliens.
No.
And I said, yeah, I believe there's intelligent life out there somewhere.
Am I forgetting
our
last podcast? That was with
What are you drinking, bro?
That was with Davi. Bro, that was with Davi, Rolando, Buck, and Christian.
Either way, let's go back to Abraham Lincoln.
No. Are aliens real?
I mean, I've never seen one, so I can't say they're real.
Are ghosts real?
Now, were they here? People say they have bodies obviously buried in the U.S. to study.
Like World of the World.
That they're still coming here and visiting, all that kind of stuff. I don't obviously believe that, but I mean, there's people are saying that they're seeing UFOs and weird identified flying objects.
How are the Egyptian pyramids built then?
Oh, I love that one. That's a great one. Do you really think human beings could build that?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
Interesting.
I think what we're doing
without the technologies we have today.
I think what you're doing is discrediting the intelligence of our ancestors.
Well, no, I would never do that.
Yeah, because you said without the
our
intelligence.
ancestors are all different, but
you said without the intelligence.
Are you from Egypt?
No, motherfucker, I ain't from Egypt.
You're
I ain't offended. No. When I say our ancestors, I'm talking about human beings that lived prior to us.
But that's not the definition of what ancestry means. But what I would say is, I think. Let's edit that out. No,
I'm not editing that out. That's it.
No. I think. I mean, obviously, we have to believe the pyramids were built by people because no one's seen aliens build them, so you have no direct evidence of it. But it's very, very difficult to lift whatever those things are, bricks or whatever they're made out of.
3 tons.
And get them up. How high are they?
Fucking
let's just say
1,300 feet.
Very high.
1,300 feet. Yeah.
Without what? Machines? Without trucks? Just human labor?
But you're discrediting it.
I'm not discrediting. I'm saying
the technologies that may have been lost.
How many people do you think it took to take one?
That's my point.
We know. It was a bunch of Jewish slaves.
Well, I don't know. But
no, that's exactly what it was.
I think we're getting off topic. But I just think that that's a very difficult undertaking.
Okay,
I'm saying the conspiracy is maybe somebody else might have been involved helping with
levitation technology from outer space.
I don't know.
No, bro, this is what you ever see Ancient Aliens?
No.
You've never seen Ancient? Have you seen Ancient?
No.
You guys don't have the History Channel?
Sports. I do. I only watch political government stuff, but
I don't watch that shit.
Well, anyways, with the amount of time that we have left, we want to leave Steve to...
we only got 2 minutes.
All right, well, hey, Steve, go ahead and tell our audience, hey, how can they reach you? what are your last words as far as like inspiration or, anything like that?
I will say nothing to plug myself, but what I will say is
Plug yourself.
Definitely
Fantetti Legal, baby.
get a lawyer to review your contracts. Definitely get a lawyer to help you set up your business from an HR side, because the pitfalls that a business can face, if they just do it right the first time, it's much easier as you go forward.
Yeah.
I would say that to give good entrepreneurial advice to your entrepreneurs. I would say definitely do that.
And Steve's got a lot coming on. We're hoping to have
we can't
Steve
talk
on.
about it though.
We're coming on again, baby.
We can't talk about everything that Steve's got coming on,
But it's big.
But I'll tell you something. I'll
It's
leave you a
big.
little bit. The NFL.
We'll come back and talk about that.
That's all I'll leave you with.
can't wait to get
Steve's
in
got some massive news for the NFL, and then also a book that he's writing that's going to be a conspiracy.
No, historical fiction.
Historical.
Yeah.
About a
nonfiction.
conspiracy.
Yeah, about a conspiracy.
Alleged conspiracy.
So, I mean, we got a lot of interesting stuff coming on. We're going to have him on again. If you have any questions for him, like, comment, and subscribe. He is available, to answer any of these questions. So,
And if you guys want to reach out to us, 813-385-6609.
Guys like
And last
Mike
thing,
Jones,
last thing.
305.
Hey, Steve, what did you want to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, not too much ice in the Johnny Walker Blue if you ever drink.
Hey, we want to thank Steve Fantetti for coming on again, man.
Cheers, brother.
He has absolutely killed it. We really appreciate everybody listening to Happy Hour Holidays. Remember, we're all about business, entrepreneurship, how we can educate you to be better in business. So thank you for listening. Sean Febre, Steve Fantetti, peace out.